Welcome to Audit the Audit, where we sort out the who and what and the right and wrong of police interactions. This episode covers officer conduct, the Fifth Amendment, and civilian rights, and is brought to us by Willie D. Live's channel. Be sure to check out the description below and give them the credit that they deserve. Before we dive into the interaction, I want to give a big thanks to the sponsor of this episode, Raid Shadow Legends. Raid is already the most polished and diverse RPG available, but the Raid development team is constantly adding content to the game and finding new ways for players to experience the world of Talaria. Endlessly challenge yourself in the ongoing tournaments by competing against the entire Raid community while fighting in the Spider's Den, the Ice Golem's Peak, the almighty Fire Knight's Dungeon, or the notorious Dragon's Lair. Players can also compete in the brand new Arena Tournament, where you earn points according to your tier and win awesome rewards in the local and global tournaments. Raid is also cross-platform and available on both PC and mobile devices. You can support ATA by downloading Raid using the link below, and if you're a new player, you can get an exclusive welcome pack that contains 50,000 silver, 50 gems, 5 mystery shards, an energy refill, 1 XP boost, a clan boss key, and a free champion, the Executioner. You can find your rewards in your in-game inbox, but only for the next 30 days. So click that link before it's too late. Thanks again to Raid for sponsoring this episode. The details surrounding this interaction have been difficult to locate, but this encounter offers many teachable moments that are worth exploring. Based on the video, it is clear that this interaction took place somewhere in the state of Nevada and features Trooper Van Ellen of the Nevada Highway Patrol. I was unable to determine when this interaction took place or what exactly occurred before the video begins, but you are free to draw your own conclusions based on the conversation between Officer Van Ellen and the individual she stopped.
Proper conversation?
Okay, ma'am, I'm recording for my own safety. The speed limit is 65. I was going 66, and you're on my ass, and then you tailgate me, and then you go faster than me. You're an officer of the law. The speed limit states that it's 65, so you are not allowed to go past that speed limit, period. What makes you think that just because you're an officer that you can go...
Driver's license?
What did I do wrong?
I would like to identify
I do not have to. I have not committed a crime.
You do.
What was my crime? Please tell me the charge that I committed.
Sarge, 214, can you come to my 20?
Please tell me the crime that I committed.
I wanted to have a proper conversation with you to let you know that I can't catch people that are doing 80.
Where does it state in the law that you're allowed to go over the speed limit unless it's an emergency?
All officers are subject to the very same motor vehicle codes that apply to citizens. The laws regarding when an emergency vehicle may legally violate those codes varies from state to state, but are typically very similar in their scope and structure. Nevada Revised Statute 484B.700 states that the driver of an authorized emergency vehicle who is responding to an emergency call in pursuit of an actual or suspected violator of the law, responding to a fire alarm, or escorting a funeral procession may disregard certain traffic codes within reason. However, subsection 2 of that code states that the driver of the emergency vehicle must have their emergency lights on while doing so. It is impossible to know for sure whether Trooper Van Ellen had her emergency lights on, but based on the conversation between the trooper and the individual she stopped, it does not appear as though she did. Trooper Van Ellen also admits later in the video that she was in fact speeding.
Please tell me the NRS code that states that, or the DMV codes and traffic laws that state that you can do that.
Okay, but look.
No, please say that to me. I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right. Do you know what my Fifth Amendment right is?
No, I don't. Tell me.
Okay, you're an officer of the law. Fifth Amendment right states that when I invoke that, whatever charge or crime you're committing me of, you have to go ahead and state that and show it to me therein.
The Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution established many precedents in regards to both criminal and civil legal proceedings, such as the right to remain silent, the right to due process, the doctrine of double jeopardy, and many others. But the Fifth Amendment does not dictate that law enforcement officers must inform citizens of why they are being stopped. In fact, no laws or constitutional amendments require officers to articulate their suspicions or reasons for detainment to citizens or suspects. While it is true that under the Terry Doctrine, officers must be able to articulate specific facts that led them to make an arrest or effectuate a detention, they are not required to verbalize those facts to anyone outside of a courtroom.
Okay.
So please tell me the NRS code that states that you're allowed to go faster than 65 unless it is an emergency.
Trying to enforce public safety because my radar was flashing 75, 78, 79. So somebody up there is speeding. And 9 times out of 10, when they're speeding, they're making unsafe lane changes, right?
Okay, you were way behind me, ma'am. I saw you long ago, and you came really quick up on me, And
Maybe
check one faster.
Maybe because you were doing my cruise control set at 70.
Ma'am, I have a breathalyzer, okay? It records everything. Okay, so it records my speed. I stay at 65, I use my cruise control.
Okay, so I'm glad that you do your speed limit and all that, but I'm just trying to let you know that my radar is flashing 78.
Okay. So again, tell me please.
You can get me from 147.
Please tell me what crime I committed. Or what you're charging me with.
You haven't committed any
So then
crime.
I do not have to give you my ID or identify myself because I have not
Yes,
committed
you
a
do
crime.
for my safety.
No, I do not. I have not committed a crime and I'm not under arrest. It states it in the law.
Although Nevada is a stop and identify state, officers are still required to have reasonable suspicion of a crime before they may demand identification from a suspect. Trooper Van Ellen stated that she only stopped the individual to have a conversation, and while the law does permit her to lie about her reasoning, the rest of the video clarifies that her motives for the stop were exactly that. If the detention were to be challenged in court, it would require little effort from Trooper Van Ellen to justify her stop by some other means. As noted by Justice D. Arthur Kelsey of the Supreme Court of Virginia, quote, "So dense is the modern web of motor vehicle regulations that every motorist is likely to get caught in it every time he drives to the grocery store." This notion is also reflected in a colloquial phrase that often circulates various law enforcement agencies. Quote, "If you can't find a reason to pull someone over, then you aren't trying hard enough." There is a wealth of jurisprudence and philosophical ideologies at play when discussing overregulation, which I will not get into in this episode. But the point is that even in an encounter where the officer's ill intentions are plainly on display, there are still legitimate legal defenses that would be difficult to disprove within a courtroom. Nonetheless, it is difficult to understand how refusing to provide identification in the absence of reasonable suspicion constitutes a safety concern for Trooper Van Ellen.
It's my
For
constitutional
my
right.
safety, if I ask you, first off, I just wanted to have a conversation with you,
Okay.
letting you know, instead of having a conversation at 65 mile an hour, that my radar was flashing. I was trying to catch somebody up there, right?
Not only is Trooper Van Ellen openly admitting that she only stopped the individual to have a conversation with him, but she also admitted to abandoning her pursuit of a potentially criminal activity to do so.
Okay? That's my God-given right to protect the safety of the community. When somebody's doing 80 up there, they're normally zigzagging out of traffic. That makes it unsafe for a 92-year-old grandma. And I don't like that because my mother drives these roads, okay? So are you on paper?
Am I on paper?
Yeah.
As far as what, parole or probation?
Uh-huh.
I do not have to identify myself. I don't. I have not committed a crime.
I don't think you have any Fourth Amendment rights if you're on paper.
As is the case in many other states, individuals in Nevada who have been convicted of a felony may have certain civil liberties revoked, such as the right to vote, bear arms, or the right to hold public office as dictated in the Nevada state constitution. Nevada used to have one of the most complicated civil rights restoration schemes in the country, in which the loss and restoration of civil rights depended upon the nature of an individual's crime and overall criminal record. But in May of 2019, the Nevada legislature passed Nevada Assembly Bill 431, which dramatically simplified the system and loosened the state's grip on the liberties of those who have been previously convicted. All that said, there are many crimes which can result in a citizen being placed on probation, and that does not necessarily mean that the citizen automatically loses all of their rights. The rights protected under the Fourth and Fifth Amendments are not subject to revocation based on criminal history. Anyone who is not currently incarcerated is entitled to Fourth Amendment protections, and all citizens, regardless of their criminal past or current level of incarceration, are entitled to Fifth Amendment protections.
I don't have to disclose anything, and if you really want to go down that road, no, I'm not on probation or parole. Just to satisfy your need to go ahead and pry information from me. I have the right to drive on public roadways in the U.S. without any infringement upon me or a
and see,
papers check.
I just wanted to have a conversation with you.
And I'm just letting you know that you're an officer of the law and you're supposed to uphold it. So you shouldn't be speeding or tailgating. If I tailgated you, you would have pulled me over immediately.
But you had no idea what I was doing.
If you really had an emergency, the second you got around me, you would have took off to go get that person, but you didn't.
No, because I felt like I owed you an explanation.
Okay, what's more important, giving me an explanation or protecting the roads and safety as you're so stating you're trying to uphold?
Oh, and by the way, Van Ellen.
That's
and
fine.
my P number is 483 for the record.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, but we're just waiting on Sergeant.
No, that's fine. Sergeant can come out. Not a problem.
The trooper and the citizen continue their banter, and eventually a sergeant arrives on the scene.
Hello, Sergeant Kelly, Highway Patrol. How are you doing today?
I've been better. I was a little bit upset at the fact that your officer is stating the claims that she's stating. It's very unprofessional and upsetting that an officer of the law can't give me the NRS code that apparently I'm violating, but then she tells me I have not committed a crime or a charge, so I do not have to identify myself. And if she really felt that concerned for her safety, she would have stepped away from my window and she would have backed up and waited until you, her supervisor, came to assess the situation. Obviously, she's still standing here having a full conversation with me for 8 minutes. She obviously does not have a concern for her safety. She just wants to do a papers check, because I know when you run the ID, it goes into the database and it shows that I had an interaction with law enforcement. And I'm not having that on my record, so I do not have to declare my identity because I have not committed a crime. I'm not under arrest.
Okay. You're right. You're not under arrest at the moment, but you were detained.
She never stated that, officer.
All right. Anytime an emergency vehicle stops you, you are detained. Okay, just so you know. All right. You may not be under arrest, but you are detained at that moment.
But I still do not have to present my ID. I still do not have to present my ID.
Technically, by law, you don't have to present your ID.
Thank you for stating that.
But by law, you do have to provide your name.
No, I do not.
Okay. I'm not.
That's preventing identity. That's giving it.
I'm not going to argue with you. After speaking with her, you're free to go at the moment.
Okay.
But for future reference, you do have to state your name.
Okay, and for future reference, you need to advise your officer that just because she's a law enforcement official, if I had tailgated her the way she tailgated me, you guys would have pulled me over in a heartbeat.
I'm not going to argue. I wasn't there. I didn't see that.
Okay.
After speaking with her, you're free to go.
Could I have your badge number, please?
214.
Okay. I'll be making a formal complaint since you do not want to go ahead and reprimand your officer for the fact that she was driving unsafely.
Okay. What I do with my officer is a personnel matter, which is not public record. Just so you know.
And like I said, I will go to your superiors. But thank you. I know I'm free to go. I'm just stating for the record that I will be making a formal complaint because you refuse to go ahead and let your officer know that she does not have the authority to tailgate or to speed unless it is an emergency.
Okay. I'm not going to debate any of that with
That's
you.
fine. I'll go on my merry way. You have a nice day, officer.
Use the shoulder here to get up to speed. Merge over once clear. Just be careful, okay?
Yep.
As mentioned at the beginning of this episode, I was unable to locate any follow-up information for this interaction, but it appears as though the citizen was allowed to go free without further incident. It is also unclear whether the citizen proceeded with filing a formal complaint against the trooper. Overall, Trooper Van Ellen gets an F for detaining a citizen to have a conversation, attempting to identify that citizen without reasonable suspicion, and displaying a fundamental misunderstanding of constitutional protections. It appears as though much of this interaction and Trooper Van Ellen's policing tactics were dictated by her emotions, not the law, and much of the trooper's actions were far outside the bounds of her authority. Like any other job, law enforcement officers must adhere to the guidelines associated with their profession and retain the mental capacity to separate their emotions from their duties. While there should be some level of discretion afforded to officers in the field, that discretion should never be compromised by the officer's emotional status or psychological dispositions. Trooper Van Ellen would do well to brush up on the basics of policing and become more acquainted with the protections guaranteed to all citizens by the very Constitution that she swore an oath to uphold. The citizen gets an A-, because although he was mistaken about the language of the Fifth Amendment, he maintained a collected and relatively articulate demeanor, remained vigilant in reserving his constitutional rights, and rightfully questioned the legitimacy of Trooper Van Ellen's conduct. If there is one silver lining to this interaction, it is that the citizen was ultimately allowed to go free and intended to file a complaint against the trooper. The citizen's legal knowledge served him well during this encounter, and even if he was wrong about certain legal principles, the ones that he was right about were invoked efficiently. While I recommend that the citizen also re-examine the protections granted by the Constitution, I also commend him for his conversational agility and legal awareness. This interaction highlights the fact that even a surface-level understanding of laws and civilian rights can serve to protect citizens against misconduct, and I encourage all citizens to gain a basic understanding of their local laws and the rights guaranteed to them under the Constitution. Let us know if there is an interaction or legal topic you would like us to discuss in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more police interaction content.